So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and every now and then the stars align for me and I actually get a Riven for a weapon that I really want to check out, like the Acrid. This weapon used to be the bee's knees back in like 2013 before damage 2.0 rolled out. The damage it did pierced through armor, which was very important because that was basically the only way to deal with armor if the weapon actually did armor piercing damage. If it didn't, well, tough luck. And it also had a unique mechanic where it would do a little bit of poison damage up front, and then it would do additional poison damage over 4 seconds. Then damage 2.0 rolled out. The damage was changed over to toxin, which was nowhere near as strong as the original poison damage, and it no longer ignored armor because we now had corrosive damage and corrosive procs to deal with that. So needless to say, damage 2.0 hurt this weapon a lot. But then they introduced Rivens into the game, and they gave Acrid strong Riven disposition. So the question we're gonna ask and answer today is the Acrid any good if you have a Riven for it? The build I'm running on the Acrid is a 5 Forma build. I've added 3 Vs, a dash, and then a D for the Riven. I'm using Hornet Strike for damage, Barrel Diffusion for multi-shot, Lethal Torrent for fire rate and multi-shot, then I'm running Jolt and Pistol Pestilence for corrosive damage and some status chance, Scorch and Prime Heated Charge for more status chance and a ton of heat damage, and finally the Riven, which adds heat damage, raw damage, and toxin damage. Now, while the Riven that I have is pretty damn good, you could definitely get a better one, something like damage, multi-shot, and then maybe another element or even more status chance. That way, you would get a ton of damage, you would get more bolts for multi-shot, which would translate into even more damage, and you would get more status chance. But even with the Riven that I have on there, the weapon is basically as good as it used to be back in the day, maybe even a little bit better. It's not as ridiculous as something like the Pandero or even Euphona Prime if you slap a bunch of primed mods on there, but I wouldn't call it bad either. It also works pretty well versus all 3 of the factions, or 4 if you count the Corrupted, because first of all, Corrosive and Heat is a good overall setup. It's not great versus Corpus, but it's not bad either. And you still have the added toxin damage, which is multiplied by Hornet Strike, you know, your multi-shot, and also the Riven. So you get a toxin damage on top of that, so you're proccing Corrosive, Heat, and Toxin. But there is another setup you can run, which runs basically the same thing, Hornet Strike, Barrel Diffusion, Lethal Torrent, but then I've added Pistol Gambit because I don't have enough mod capacity and I don't want to invest another Forma into this just yet, so I've added that for a little bit of crit chance. I mean, 11% is not the best thing, but it's okay. Then we have Pistol Pestilence, Scorch, Prime Heated Charge, and the Riven, and this creates a ton of gas damage. This setup is unsurprisingly terrible versus armor, especially if you're fighting level 100 units, though it is kind of funny seeing all the numbers fly up. This setup is mostly designed to clear out the cannon fodder units thanks to the gas cloud explosions, but it does deal pretty well even with like Corpus Techs or Ancients up to sort of level 100. So the answer to the question is yes, the weapon is actually pretty good if you have a decent Riven for it. And I would not hesitate to take it into a sortie. And I've actually had quite a bit of fun with the Acrid as well, which is kind of surprising because I generally dislike weapons that have no recoil, and this weapon has no recoil whatsoever. Even if you get plus recoil on your Riven, it's still not going to kick whatsoever. I guess it's just the fact that the majority of weapons in Warframe have some kind of recoil and varying amounts of it, so playing with a weapon that has no recoil for once is something different and it switches it up a little bit. So if by any chance you got a Riven for the Acrid as well, don't dissolve it just yet. Give it a shot, build the weapon, try it out, try different builds, and you will see that the weapon is quite a bit of fun and it can be really strong as well. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching as always, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.